I find it very interesting as a Christian that our Christian churches have not gotten behind us on this issue. If you turn to the first page of your Bible, it tells us that God created every green herb on the face of this planet, every tree that bore fruit, and every grass that you see, even in this dusty field out here. And when he looked and saw, it was good. Then if you go to the last page of the Bible, Revelations chapter 22, verse 2. It's funny, it's on the first page and on the last page. A mention of a plant, that the leaves of the tree would be for the healing of our nation. Hemp and cannabis strains have so many uses in our society. We could replace some of the foreign fuel that we're using. We could replace a lot of the plastics that they're telling us when we put it in the microwave, it poisons our food. We have bath and beauty products and all that stuff on the shelves, and I encourage you to support those people that are selling those products because it raises awareness. Buy a bottle of hemp lotion and give it to your friend. And just say, hey, this is hemp. And like the man over here, he'll be like, huh? But it raises awareness. The United States Census, this is an interesting fact that I wanted to give you today, of 1850, counted 8,327 hemp plantations in this country. And that's not been all that long ago. There's still people alive that were alive when hemp was still legal. The minimum farm was 2,000 acres, and growing cannabis, they were growing it for cloth, canvas, and even cordage used for baling cotton. Another interesting fact that I found in this blog is that the federal approach to this was pretty important. And federal law is what's causing states like California and Colorado to be attacked by our federal government for running legal cannabis dispensaries. We now have 17 legal states, including Washington, D.C. And I really am curious to know how many politicians have their medical marijuana card. I don't think we could ever find that out. But I guarantee you that some of those politicians are trying it because of people like me. I know North Carolina politicians that are trying it, so I'm sure there's a few in D.C. But the federal approach is important. It was considered back then that the federal government did not have constitutional power to outlaw alcohol or drugs. It is because of that that alcohol prohibition required a constitutional amendment. Something very important here about the cannabis plant. There is no constitutional amendment against cannabis. There was a constitutional amendment against alcohol, and boys like Al Capone and that crowd just said, heck no, we're not going to fall for this, and it became very violent. But I think part of why the cannabis movement has taken so long to flourish is that people that use cannabis are nonviolent, unlike what the government would have most of mass public believing. Since drugs could not be outlawed on the federal level, this is how they did it. The decision was made to use federal taxes as a way around restriction. How many of you know that North Carolina has a tax stamp act? How many of you know that you can put in an envelope enough money to pay for a 1 gram stamp of marijuana, the price is $3.50 per gram, send it to the North Carolina Department of Revenue, and they will send you some legal tax stamps to apply to your bag of marijuana. I highly recommend this action if you're a recreational user, because it's going to be kind of funny if you get caught with it and it has a tax stamp on it. they're going to be like, what? I keep 10 of them on my medicine because I've actually threatened to get myself arrested to nullify marijuana laws in North Carolina. I've said that to the legislators here. That's another thing that I'd like to talk about for just a quick moment, because we have 12 minutes left and I have some comments from other people to read, and I want to tell you about me. Jury nullification is a very important word to remember. My friend Stephanie Landa on Facebook works on this issue. If you find her, the information is readily available. We had a high court rule that every jury in this nation has a right to be notified that even though what a person may have been doing was against the law, say for instance me, if I was caught with marijuana, that would be against the law. But if, in breaking the law, they felt that the person was doing it for the right reason, and I think it's a pretty right reason when you have cancer and you know this plant could help eradicate it from your body, that's a pretty good reason to break the law. And I will continue to break the law, and I will continue to tell other people what I have lived through so that they can be alive today as well. But it all started with a man named Harry Anslinger. And I just want to read a few things that Harry Anslinger presented to our government back in the day when cannabis was outlawed. The primary reason to outlaw marijuana is its effect on the degenerate races. Marijuana is an addictive drug which produces in its users insanity, criminality, and death. Do I look like I'm insane or criminal or dead? No. And I've been back using cannabis medically since 2009, 4 years ago. Reefer makes darkies think they're as good as white men. And they are. This is stuff that was presented to outlaw this plant. Marijuana leads to pacifism and communist brainwashing. You smoke a joint and you're likely to kill your brother. How many of you that use cannabis have ever hurt one of your family members over smoking a joint? We share it with them. We're not trying to kill them. Marijuana is the most violence-causing drug in the history of mankind. Everybody in this country knows somebody that smokes marijuana. And it's probably the least of your friends that will cause the least problems. And I would guarantee you, if you have a friend that's on paid narcotics, you wish they didn't come to the house. Because when I was on paid narcotics, I was a basket case. And then he loved to pull out his own version of the word assassin. I don't know how many of you know that that's where this word came from. But it came from 1090. There was founded in Persia the religious and military order of assassins, whose history was one of cruelty, barbarity, and murder. So that's like political warring going on. But they chose to blame marijuana for that because the members were confirmed users of hashish or marijuana. And it was from the Arabs, hashashin, that the English word assassin came from. I thought that was some pretty interesting facts there. Kind of got me a little bit. Honorable mentions that I want you to leave here with today. We're going to talk about my cancer for just a quick second because we have 7 minutes and 45 seconds. And if nobody's speaking at 1:30, I get another 30 minutes. But In the medical cannabis world right now, there's some amazing things going on. We've got people out here that have watched a movie by the name of Run from the Cure. This movie was produced by Rick Simpson and some of his associates that I'm well associated with now. How I found out about Rick Simpson was a girlfriend of mine brought me, it's funny how they got a helicopter over my head right now, but a friend of mine brought me a copy of Run from the Cure because I had found that first tumor and I was really concerned that I was going to die. My heart rate was racing out of control. My kidneys were shutting down. My gallbladder was inflaming. My body was going into full edema, and I knew I had to do something. So I watched the Rick Simpson movie Run from the Cure, and at that time I had started back smoking marijuana for maybe 3 or 4 months and had gotten myself totally off the pharmaceutical narcotics just by smoking marijuana. But I had no idea about Rick Simpson and this stuff they were calling Phoenix Tears. And you'll also see it referred to as Rick Simpson Oil, RSO. You'll also see it referred to as hemp oil. Rick likes to call it hemp oil, but that's a little confusing to people because we have hemp oil in the nature stores as well. It's not the same thing. So because of this movie, a lot of people started trying this cannabis oil that had access to cannabis and making it. It's very easy to make yourself. You don't need the pharmaceutical companies to do it for you. It's a very simple process. The biggest fear is overheating it, and you can very easily make this medication for yourself in your own home. One of the big people I want to talk about is recently Tommy Chong. How many of you know who Tommy Chong is?
Yeah.
Recently, Tommy Chong, a couple months ago, diagnosed with prostate cancer.